Oh, hi, Joanne. This is Angus Smyth. I'm going to attempt to run through my presentation on week 8, and hopefully it all comes out okay and you can hear me okay. So just following on, just going to the slides that I've uploaded. The first slide there, it talks about why we do a new directors induction program, and essentially the purpose is to help that director get their head around the processes and the procedures where the organisation is headed, so that they can get up to speed really quickly and start to contribute to the board's function and performance. An induction program also promotes good governance, and it's an opportunity to remind this director, even if they are experienced about their statutory responsibilities. By extension, the ASX corporate governance principles and recommendations talk about the nomination committee of a board taking responsibility for induction and ongoing training. It also ensures that board members have a knowledge of the sector and the industry that the business is operating in, and understanding how that business works within the industry, what the strategy and direction is, and really importantly, what the expectations of the board members in the company are of that director in carrying out their role. There are significant legal responsibilities, and for a new director, that's going to be a steep learning curve, but for an existing director, it's an important reminder of those responsibilities. The way I approach it, I guess, is looking into how we do it, and I've identified 4 elements of a successful induction program. The first is an initial familiarisation with the business. There's the ongoing training element. There's the mentoring, identifying someone or people to assist that director in coming up to speed and carrying out their role. And importantly, making sure that the induction program is tailored to that director's needs, and that they've got the opportunity to give feedback about what they're looking for from that program as well. When we're looking at that initial familiarisation process, I've divided that process up into 4 specific areas, that being the people, the places, the processes, and the performance. So the people component is all about connecting with the key people in the organisation, getting a copy of the organisation chart, getting an understanding of who to go for what specific things within the organisation. It's connecting with that director and finding out what their training needs are, and making sure that they know who to go to both within the board and in the organisation if they've got questions or require information. Places is an important component. Obviously, that director needs to understand the facilities, the logistics. That may involve a tour of the facilities, but more importantly, they're like any other director, any other employee. They need to know where to find things when they're in our building, how to photocopy stuff, how to order a computer, things like that, how to get in and out of the building, make sure they've got security codes, etc. So those logistical issues all fall into that places component. Then we delve into the process side of things, and this is where we get a little bit more in detail about what the position description for that director is, what their responsibilities are in terms of the governing documents of the company, where the policies and procedures are, because from that high level component, a board director needs to understand those policies to ensure that they're right for the organisation and compliant. That director needs to know their schedule, when they've got to be at board meetings, where they're happening. They need to understand key company events that they might like to be at or should be at through the course of the year. They need to get an overview of the board's internal code of conduct, as well as the regulatory environment that the business operates in, and that could be both using internal and external resources, perhaps external counsel at some point in time to add value if it can't be done internally. Then we look at the performance component, and this is where the director needs to understand both what the expectations of the company's performance are, so meeting budget, understanding where they are financially, but also having a look at the board's performance, so reviewing previous board meetings and getting an understanding of operational issues all tie into that director getting up to speed with overall performance of the company, and where they're going to fit into to add value along the way. I talked earlier before about, in those 4 components of the successful program, about ongoing training, and it's important, I think, for this director to get connected with a mentor, perhaps at board level, maybe the chair if appropriate, but that formal induction program, that initial program of training, doesn't mean that it's all over. It's important for that ongoing training to go probably up to the first 24 months of their appointment. And I think in the context of this company, in this example, where there's significant regulatory framework for financial products, that is ongoing, and legislation changes all the time. So we need to make sure that this director and the board are up to speed with all of those over time. Could be appropriate for that director to attend some external director training, the Australian Institute of Company Directors or something along those lines, to help them understand managing conflicts of interest and their own personal disclosure requirements, which may come along. But it's also important for them to understand how their own performance and the board's performance is going to be measured. Mentoring is a really key component, and I've used this term of a godmother or godfather director who's taking that director under their wing. I think it's important to have some checklists that can help that director and their mentor understand where they're up to and where the training gaps are. And I think it's important that that mentoring be both formal and informal to make it really effective. The last important component of that overall process I talked about was tailoring and feedback. And I think it's important right from the get-go to get an understanding of what the needs of that director are from a training point of view. And it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And that taking that approach may lead to frustration for that director because they're going over old ground and they're not moving forward in terms of their learning. So that's why it's important to be a two-way process. And the company and the chair and the board all need to be open to getting feedback about that induction process and identifying which parts were useful and which weren't, so that they can improve on that for the future. So I hope that all makes sense, and let's get out there and do it. Thanks for your time.